The friends you have when you get to old age, you're probably going to be the same friends you have today. You know, people often do try to get those kinds of long-term relationships. You could call it like a best friend forever kind of a situation. But the idea here is they want to just have some kind of stability in their life. These individuals that they have this kind of long-term friendship with, these individuals serve a purpose that we call the social convoy. So this could be an individual or more often a group of people who journey with us throughout our lives, providing support in good times and in bad times. And the most important aspect of the social convoy, it's not that these are your favorite people in the world. It's not that you get to see them every day. The most important thing is that they're always there in some form. You know, they're always just a phone call away, or they're always just, you know, down the street. Just somebody that you can talk to, somebody that gives you a feeling of security, a sense of consistency in your life. So yes, these friends, the main purpose of having friends like this is to provide like a protective, secure cushion so that the individual, as they journey through life, they can explore the world. They know that they always have something to fall back on. They always know that they have something that they can go to if they get into any kind of trouble. And having a good social convoy does tend to increase an individual's mental health and overall well-being. And this is an especially important thing to have for a lot of African Americans and many immigrant groups. They just need to feel that sense of security. Now, once you do reach late life, these social convoys are going to continue to be especially important. But the quality and the purpose of these late life friendships is fundamental. You know, older people, they're typically going to be a bit more choosy about who they associate with. And they do want to have some good friends. One big reason for that is so they don't have to be overly reliant on their family. You know, like if they're having some difficulty around the house or with some personal issue, they can just support each other. So yeah, they do want to have these relationships, but it's very important to have good quality relationships. It's actually linked to having a longer lifespan. You actually see a slower reduction in telomere length. That's something I mentioned in a previous video. If you have a good, strong social support network. So having good friends leads to a longer life, basically. Now, for many of us, our social convoy includes siblings. Siblings are like these special friends that you have your entire life, whether you like it or not. You know, all the joys that you have, all the pains that you have early in life will always kind of be there in one form or another. You know, like if you had some strife during your teenage years or your childhood years, that's going to continue to influence you throughout the relationship. And one of the most common sources of strife between siblings is any kind of perception of parental favoritism. That can definitely drive a wedge through these siblings' relationship. But something I mentioned just a moment ago is that elders, they're more selective. They're more, you know, choosy about who they're friends with. And this brings us to the theory of socio-emotional selectivity. This theory argues that all social contact is motivated by a variety of goals. This could include information seeking, it could include developing a self-concept, or it can include emotional regulation. And when it comes to elders, it's that third goal that is the primary goal that drives their social engagement. So older individuals, they want to have somebody to share their personal feelings with. They want to have somebody that they can confide in and be intimate with in that regard. And because of the nature of this, you know, desire, they tend to just naturally have fewer relationships and develop fewer new friends. And for many older individuals, they really don't have that many friends left. They only have a small circle of friends. And that might even be so small of a circle that it's just them and one other person, which is sometimes the case when you look at old married couples. You know, they have each other, they've always been there for each other, but there's not much else. And I know that sounds kind of pessimistic or sad, but that can actually work out very well. You know, older couples, they typically are less likely to perceive events in their life or, you know, things that their partner does in a negative way. They're just typically more optimistic about things, you know, more optimistic about people. And satisfaction, you know, life satisfaction, marital satisfaction, this will increase in older couples who had children. But we can actually see it in some cases decrease in older couples that never had children. But one interesting side note about the old married couple thing and how it can improve their life is that when we look at homosexual couples and compare that to heterosexual couples, we don't see anything interesting actually. In my opinion, it's interesting how uninteresting this is. Like it's just the same thing. You know, marriage is marriage, it seems. You know, they have the same difficulties, they have the same joys, they get the same benefits. There's nothing particularly interesting to talk about here, and I find that interesting. Sorry. But there is one thing about being in a marriage for a long period of time that can really take a toll on an individual's subjective well-being and their relationship quality, and that is if one of them becomes chronically ill. Caring for a chronically ill partner is generally a lot more stressful and challenging than caring for a chronically ill parent, and in some cases even a chronically ill child. So marital satisfaction and depression will they will be affected by the severity of the partner's symptoms. So as the partner becomes more ill, then these other things will go up. There is one big factor though that can counteract this. Having a higher prior marital satisfaction will provide like a buffer against the effects of depression in this case. So in other words, if you had a very good quality relationship with the individual before they got sick, then them being sick won't hit you as hard. Another big factor regarding how strong of an effect this has is the caregiver's perceived competence. You know, if the person needs some support that they feel like they can provide, then they're going to not be too negatively affected by having to give this care. But if it's something that's not, you know, in their wheelhouse, so to speak, if it's something that they're not very good at doing or they don't think they're good at doing, then it's just going to make things that much worse. And the unfortunate thing about this is that this does tend to happen. You know, as individuals reach late life, they do tend to start to develop some chronic conditions, and this can lead to the death of one of these individuals. That will drive the survivor into widowhood, is what we call it. The widowhood just refers to the person losing a spouse, basically. And over the age of 65, 50% of women are widows. Only 15% of men over the age of 60 are widowers. But the individuals who do have to enter into widowhood, they typically find this as the most traumatic experience of their lives. It causes increased risk of death among older European Americans. But we don't really see this as much with other ethnicities like African Americans. And this increased risk of death will last many years. Why exactly we see an increased risk of death is not an easy explanation, but basically the person's negative mood, the person's depression and heartbreak, it just takes a massive toll on their body, and their body grows progressively weaker as a result. And even if that physical toll doesn't really get exacted on them, losing a spouse will result in extreme loneliness and oftentimes self-imposed alienation from friends and family. The individual, in a manner of speaking, is trying to cope with the loss of this spouse by avoiding things that remind them of that spouse. And as you can probably imagine, this is basically impossible because everything around them will remind them of that individual. So it's kind of like they have to shut themselves off from the whole world in order to get away from this heartache. And we do see a gender difference when it comes to trying to cope with this loss. Men tend to recover more slowly than women. But women, while they are quicker to emotionally recover, women do tend to have other concerns, like financial concerns as a result of losing a spouse. And just so we don't finish the video with something really depressing like that, I want to mention how becoming a great-grandparent can affect an individual. This is something that a lot of elders do get to experience, thankfully, because this has some pretty beneficial aspects. There's actually 3 important aspects to this. It gives them a feeling of personal and familial renewal, like it brings new light into their life. It will provide them with new diversions, new things to do, new people to spend money on, and just give them a more positive role, like they can be the individual who gets to spoil the kids now. And it also lets them experience a major milestone in longevity, which is usually viewed in a positive way. Not everybody gets to be a great-grandparent, but those who do generally enjoy it greatly and spend as much time as they can just connecting with this new part of their family.